All right, Alexander, let's talk about ICIG, Intelligence Community Inspector General, Mr. Michael Atkinson, who is ICIG no more, or at least in the next 30 days will be ICIG no more. Of course, this relates to Ukrainegate. Let's refresh our memories, or let's let you refresh our memories, because I'm sure with all the CV pandemic stuff, we've pretty much forgotten about what's happened with Russiagate and with Ukrainegate. No. And it was just, what, 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, that they were talking about impeachment of U.S. President Trump.
It was.
Yeah, and the impeachment was a big distraction from dealing with the incoming pandemic. A huge distraction. Thank you very much, Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, Schumer, and all you guys for keeping everyone distracted with the ridiculous impeachment. Alexander, you know what? Refresh our memories with who was it? Yovanovitch and who else? Taylor and Sondland,
Vindman, Sondland,
Fiona
Hill. As I said, all this extraordinary cast and gallery of characters. Lev Parnas, remember him? all these remarkable people. But let's just deal with that very important point first, because I think this is the absolutely most important point of all.
The whistleblower who we can't say their name because that's where it all starts with.
Exactly. But let's take the very first point you made, because that is for me the key to this, to understanding how damaging this business was. Corona begins in China, November, December. There's news reports coming out. Apparently, some sections of the U.S. intelligence community were relaying back to the U.S. that this is a serious situation. So what is Washington actually talking about throughout November, December, January, and into February? They're not talking about Corona. The president isn't in a position where you can take decisive action to deal with that. They're dealing with what Donald Trump said in July over the telephone to Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, and what Rudy Giuliani was doing. I mean, you couldn't make it up, actually. I mean, it was the most catastrophic distraction there's ever been. And we had on the Duran to spend hours of time unpacking a story, an impeachment, which, as I have repeatedly said, as we've repeatedly said in these programs, is a fiction. There is no reality to it, none at all. This whole story, if you go back in time, Alex, it was all about that Donald Trump was seeking Ukraine's help in the 2020 election by withholding military aid to Ukraine in order to pressure the Ukrainians into carrying out investigations into Joe Biden. That was what it was supposed to be. And all of this related to this extraordinary company, that Ukrainian company, of which Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, was a director, paid a sum of money which has never been properly or clearly disclosed, but which was many multiples of $50,000 a month for doing, frankly, virtually nothing. He used to turn up twice a year to meetings which didn't even happen in Ukraine. And that was the whole thing. I mean, it was all about this. And it originates with this telephone conversation. At least the story supposedly originates with this telephone conversation. Zelensky's just had parliamentary elections in Ukraine. His party has done very well in them. Donald Trump phones him up to congratulate him. They have an extremely friendly telephone call. And we've been provided with the official record of that call. And that call says, all sorts of things. And they discuss the state of corruption in Ukraine. And Trump says, I'm very worried about corruption in Ukraine. And Zelensky says, yes, so am I. Don't worry. We're going to do whatever we can to sort it out. And over the course of that conversation, Trump also says, well, I've also a bit worried about the fact that Ukraine seems to be involved in Russiagate a little. It may be the server, and we're not quite sure what that means, even to this day, what that means. The server is that was related to the CrowdStrike report is in Ukraine somewhere. Will you look into this, and will you contact AG Barr, our Justice Department, to look into this? And Zelensky says, absolutely fine, we will do that, we will do that. And then Trump also says, I'm very pleased to hear that, because there's been all these problems in the past. We've had Yovanovitch, our ambassador, who's an absolutely awful ambassador, and thank God she's going. And Zelensky says, yes, she really was the worst ever ambassador you can think of. And then Trump says, well, it's really bad, and we have Joe Biden. He was able to stop the investigation of Burisma Holdings, of which his son was a director, by getting the former prosecutor general of Ukraine sacked. And Zelensky says, well, of course, none of that's going to happen again. That's what the call says. That's all the things the call says. And by the way, that last is absolutely true. Joe Biden got the Procurator General of Ukraine sacked because he was investigating Burisma Holdings. That's what the man himself says. He's shocking. He's given sworn evidence saying that is so. So, I have no reason to doubt that that is true. But to repeat, Donald Trump did not say in that conversation, please investigate Joe Biden for me. That's not what it said. So that was this telephone call. And then you have a colonel in the Justice Department, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, who is of a Ukrainian birth, but is a US military officer. He's lived all his life in the United States, but he's absolutely fervid supporter of Ukraine in the National Security Council. He has apparently been offered by the Ukrainians the Ministry of Defense, 3 times, but he's turned it down because presumably he's worked out that he can help Ukraine more by staying on the National Security Council than he can by actually becoming Minister of Defense of Ukraine. And it turns out that Vindman is in fact the actual person who runs Ukrainian policy for the United States, a lieutenant colonel who before all this crisis hardly anybody had ever heard of. So he goes around, he starts talking to all his friends everywhere. When he hears about this call, he goes absolutely paranoid. He says to himself, the policy is going to change. There are going to be investigations in Ukraine. All sorts of bad things, no doubt, will come out. He discovers that this arms shipment or whatever it was has been delayed. It's only been delayed, and there's no reference to this in the telephone call. So he talks to his friends. He talks to Taylor, who's the he's not actually an ambassador. He's the senior diplomat, the American diplomat in Kiev, and he goes around talking to his friends, and Vindman also talks to someone else, and we are not officially informed about who this other person is, but we are led to suppose, and we must suppose, that it is a person whose name we all know but can't say, the so-called whistleblower, who is a long-term official of the CIA, a person with close links to the Democratic Party, a person who is known to be fiercely and fervently anti-Trump, and somebody who's previously worked for Joe Biden. And this person contacts, officially he doesn't contact Adam Schiff at the House Intelligence Committee, but he certainly contacts staffers of Adam Schiff at the House Intelligence Committee. And surprise, surprise, a complaint comes out, which goes to Atkinson, who is the Inspector General.
Written by who?
Well, written by who? Supposedly by the whistleblower, but possibly, he may have had some help from some of these famous staffers at the House Intelligence Committee, say, that on the strength of this call, Donald Trump is trying to get the Ukrainians to interfere in the US presidential election, and this is somehow against the law. So, the actual record of the conversation, which, by the way, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman has told us is accurate and proper and reflects what was accurately said, says no such thing. The so-called whistleblower, because that's how he's referred to, hasn't seen this record. He wasn't in on the call. He's just heard this story from other people. He puts this complaint to Atkinson, the Inspector General, and bizarrely and incredibly, Atkinson takes it seriously and forwards it to who? To Adam Schiff, to the House Intelligence Committee. And that is the origins of Ukrainegate. I mean, it's one of the most ridiculous things that has ever happened. And the result was that the whole of the political system of the United States from September to February was taken up worrying about this nonsense whilst this corona crisis was exploding. And the United States, as a result, quite probably was not ready. I mean, the president wasn't taking it seriously because he was worried whether his job was on the line. And of course, it never was. I always said it wasn't. But the fact of the matter was he had to consult with lawyers. He had to appoint a team of lawyers. He had to prepare his case. There were all those bizarre maneuvers. You remember the House Democrats? They were, they weren't actually going to vote on whether to impeach, or rather, they did vote on articles of impeachment, but they held off from sending them to the Senate, and they were trying to sort of wangle the trial in the Senate, and all kinds of maneuvers and intricate games being played. And as I said, about something that had absolutely no reality. And we spent hours talking about this. Now, Atkinson has been sacked, and absolutely right of Donald Trump to do this. Let's just go back to what Atkinson did. He gets a complaint from somebody who's in the CIA, who's not complaining about anything that's happening in the CIA. He's complaining about what the president of the United States did in a telephone call with another world leader, which is highly classified. Carry on.
CIA working under whom?
Well, who
gave this the name that we can't say? Who gave him so much praise, and who was his mentor?
Brennan, the director Brennan, who was, as is universally acknowledged, the major orchestrator of the whole Russiagate hoax, which was the other hoax that the United States has spent months and years working its way through, and which resulted in the Mueller non-investigation and the Mueller-Wiseman non-report. But anyway, that's another story. But so a report by somebody, as I say, who's not complaining. He calls himself a whistleblower, but he's not exposing anything that's going wrong in the intelligence community, in the CIA, or even the National Security Council, to which he's been seconded. He is interfering in the president's conduct of US foreign policy and diplomacy, which is not something that this person has any right to do. And yet, the Inspector General of the intelligence community decides to treat that as a whistleblower complaint and to extend to this person whistleblower protections, which is why we're still not allowed to give his name, even though, by the way, whistleblower protections are not supposed to extend to the media not being allowed to mention his name. But we have to abide by that. So he does that. He doesn't actually ask or consider whether the whistleblower has actually got any first-hand information about this. The whistleblower wasn't in on the call. He just heard about it from other people. And the record shows that his understanding of the call was wrong. And yet, again, the Inspector General doesn't investigate this. He doesn't ask any questions. He simply accepts the complaint on its face and forwards it to the House Intelligence Committee. How can you justify this kind of behavior?
Who was running the House Intelligence Committee?
Adam Schiff, the chair of the House Intelligence Committee. It was a plot. We said this in our videos, and it was a plot, and it's a plot that may have cost the United States thousands of lives.
Bam. That's it. That is the moral, that is the message of this video that we're doing right now, Alexander. Let me read you something from The Blaze real quick, and then let me read you Adam Schiff's tweet that he sent out on the firing of Atkinson. Good riddance, Atkinson.
Absolutely.
He was a partisan hack. Absolutely. A partisan hack. Here's what The Blaze said. Yeah.
And a conspirator and a plotter who has done immense damage to the United States.
Right.
He's compromised the president's ability to conduct foreign policy, because now foreign leaders are going to be very, very nervous about talking to Donald Trump. And he has distracted the United States at a time of crisis, so that thousands of Americans who might be alive are now dead, and hundreds of thousands of others are at risk.
Right. I completely agree with that. Here's from The Blaze. Very quickly. Trump defended his decision to fire Atkinson on Saturday as his, quote, absolute right. He also bashed Atkinson for giving Congress the, quote, and I quote, terrible, inaccurate whistleblower report. Here is Adam Schiff's tweet on the 4th of April. Trump's dead of night decision to fire ICIG Michael Atkinson is another blatant attempt to gut the independence of the intelligence community and retaliate against those who dare to expose presidential wrongdoing. It puts our country and national security at even greater risk. F off Adam Schiff. It puts our country at greater risk. His shenanigans, his games, all the way from November, December, and January, like you said, may have cost thousands and tens of thousands of American lives. That is Adam Schiff's doing. That's on Adam Schiff's head. The mainstream media wasn't reporting about CV.
No.
The Dems bogged down the entire government so they couldn't focus on CV. They bogged down the president and the White House, which couldn't focus on the CV pandemic. All for these stupid, ridiculous shenanigans from a 10-minute phone call with Zelensky. The whole thing, God, the whole thing is incredible that Adam Schiff is still making tweets like this and insulting everyone's intelligence by saying it puts our country and national security at even greater risk.
It's
F off Adam Schiff. F off. You cost a lot of people their lives and their health.
Absolutely. Can I just add 2 quick points to your amazing summary, which I completely agree with what you said about Adam Schiff. Once again, Schiff is saying things which are not true. Firstly, Donald Trump is absolutely right when he says that he is in his rights to sack Atkinson. And of course he should. In fact, he must. You cannot allow a person who's conspired against you in this way to remain in post. That is basic. Of course he sacks his right to sack Atkinson. But the thing that really I found astonishing is that Adam Schiff talks about the independence of the US intelligence community. Independent of whom? Independent of what? The intelligence community is supposed to be a part of the federal government of the United States. The head of the federal government of the United States is the president of the United States. He is their boss. Of course, they are not independent of him. They are there to advise him. That is their constitutional and legal role. He is treating the intelligence community as if it is not a part of the presidency, of the executive, headed by the presidency, or of the US federal government. He's treating it as if it was another branch of power within the US political system, which it is not. You cannot convey too strongly how subversive of the whole American political and constitutional system those comments of Adam Schiff actually are. But that's tricky Schiff for you. I mean, he does this. Shifty Schiff, he does this all the time. He is an ally of the US intelligence community, or to be very clear, some people within it who have been waging a war against the head of the executive, the president, who is their boss. That's what he is. He is part of this conspiracy of which Atkinson was a member.
They're stupid, silly games, Alexander. You know, they have consequences. And in this case, these consequences were
grave consequences, deadly consequences. If we had had a fully engaged and alert Donald Trump with an intelligence community working for him, and not having to be wasting his time worrying about what is Vindman going to say, or you remember John Bolton, all the distractions about what John Bolton was going to say to the Senate or not say, and what was going to appear in his book. Remember the book? What happened to John Bolton's book? I mean, is anybody even interested anymore in John Bolton's book? Do you remember all of that? All those hours of time and dispute, worrying about something that had no reality. If he'd been fully engaged, if he and his officials had been alert to the threats, well, who knows? The response of the United States might have been completely different. In fact, I think it would have been completely different.
If the Congress was engaged.
The Congress was engaged, exactly. The Congress had been doing its job. They would have been, if the government had been working properly, all the various branches of the government, the United States, of the executive, the president, the intelligence community, and the Congress had been working in a joined up way, we would be in a completely different place to the one we're in now. A government which was joined up and which did have its antenna out. And I merely make this comparison because Russia is in some ways in this situation in an analogous position. They've got an intelligence community that works for the government, and they don't have a parliament, an equivalent to Congress or a media that is doing these things. They picked up on the danger at the very time when the US was descending into this fake crisis. So the result is they reacted. The US didn't. They've got about 140 people dead. The US death toll is in the thousands.
Russia shut their border right away in
January. Exactly. And they're friends of the Chinese, and the Americans are adversaries. I mean, you could not make this up.
What a tragic story.
Absolutely. It's a tragic story. It has its elements of farce. And we went through it many times. I mean, all this bizarre, as I said, catalogue of characters. Vindman, who was a completely crazed fanatic, in my opinion, on Ukrainian issues. Taylor, the diplomat in Kiev, who is frankly more loyal to some people in Ukraine than he is to the government he's supposed to be serving. Yovanovitch, who is involved protecting all sorts of interests in Ukraine, some of them deeply corrupt, and who seems to be connected also more to them than to the people in Washington. But all of this, these bizarre gallery of people, gallery of almost cartoon figures, I found them, frankly. And as I said, they wasted the time and energy of the United States. And Adam Schiff, in any fair world, ought to be in serious political trouble. It's astonishing that he and Pelosi, who also has a huge amount of blame, carries a huge responsibility in this situation, they ought to be in serious trouble. Instead, it seems that they're working up to the next investigation, and who knows, maybe even the next impeachment.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just leave it at the point that, the games they were playing, the stupidity that they were dishing out, the mainstream media that was jerking everyone's chain.
Absolutely.
Just lies after lies, just going along with this stupid, dumb narrative, all the while a pandemic was
raging,
its way.
was edging its way towards the United States. People blame Donald Trump for not taking it seriously. Go and read the New York Times, as I had to do, the Washington Post, as I had to do. Listen to what MSNBC was saying. Listen to what CNN was saying. Compare the amount of coverage the CV crisis was getting at that time with the acres and acres of newsprint, the forests of trees that were destroyed to create the paper that was required for all that Ukrainegate coverage. I mean, there is simply no comparison.
People should not forget.
People should not forget. And I'll tell you something. If Donald Trump also had said back in January, I'm sorry, there's this massive crisis coming up. We're facing this huge health crisis. We've got to focus on that and put Ukrainegate to one side. The Democrats would have been the first to complain. They would have said this, it's Donald Trump trying to get away from dealing with the really important
racist, bigot, fearmonger,
who's scared of germs. Remember all that? I mean, how scared he is of germs, and he's taking us away from the really important issue, which is Ukrainegate. That's what they would have said.
That's exactly what they would have done.
Yeah.
We'll leave it there. All right,
We'll
Alexander. Yeah, Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Guys, please subscribe to the channel. Your subscription really helps us out a lot. Hit that like button. Also look for us on iTunes and SoundCloud as well for an audio copy. And please donate to us on PayPal, Patreon, and Subscribe Star. And also go to the Duran Shop, pick up some merchandise, and buy an ebook. We have more ebooks on the way, some new ebooks on the way. But every ebook that you purchase, and I'll put a link down for the ebooks in the description box. Every ebook that you purchase, we will donate 100% of that to Feed the Fight, which is a U.S. charity, really good organization which buys food from restaurants that are struggling and delivers that food to frontline nurses and doctors. So every ebook that's purchased will give money to that cause. And of course, we're looking for other causes that will help the frontline professionals in the UK, in Italy, and in Spain, and any other suggestions viewers may have for just really good causes that we can donate ebook proceeds to.
Indeed, because these people are on the absolute front line at the moment. I mean, here in Britain, we go out and we applaud them, which we have. There's been several incidents when people have left their houses and have applauded the health workers. They deserve applause, but they also deserve support. We can only provide a limited amount because we are a small business. We're small, but what we can do, we will do. And, if you come to our ebooks, and I would add, by the way, if we can just deal with ebooks, one of our best ebooks, if they're all great, but one of the very best ones is on Ukrainegate. And if you want to refresh your memory and understand this non-crisis, you will find it by going to that ebook. So you will learn all about that, and you will help the people who need it too.
Can I just say something that I forgot? With the new ebooks?
Yes.
Whoever purchases these old ebooks that we have, these current ebooks, when we get the new ebooks out, which will be sometime this week, I will send you those new ebooks as well. There won't be any charge. So whoever purchases ebooks with the new ebooks that come out, I'll get them to you as well. So don't worry about that. We're running a little behind, but we'll get those ebooks out this week as well. And we'll get everyone that purchases the ebooks, we'll get them a copy. I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget that.
Absolutely. But of course, we don't just have ebooks in our shop. We also have our own things. We have our amazing magic mugs. This is the one I'm drinking from at the moment. I'm into Earl Grey tea at the moment. It's beautifully bright days, not very hot though. So Earl Grey is the right tea, in my opinion. But I'm drinking it from this amazing magic mug, the best mugs, tea, coffee mugs you will ever find, beautifully made, a joy to drink from, a joy to hold, a joy to look at, because if you can see, they have this extraordinary sheen, and a joy to feel, because the gloss is so amazing. And this one, by the way, it's got the badge of Alpha Force, which is Russia's elite special forces unit. They are there to do all kinds of anti-terrorist work, and they've done it in many places, in Afghanistan, in Syria, on the territory of Russia itself, in the Caucasus, all those sort of places. They are the equivalent of Delta Force and the SAS, and they are as good, at least as good. So we have lots of other magic mugs like this. You can find them also in our shop. You can also find these amazing polo shirts like the one I'm wearing now. This one is the light blue one. I have a dark blue and I have a light blue. It's a sunny day, so today it's a light blue one. I was wearing it when I went out today with my dogs in the park. It's the perfect stylish shirt. You can wear it on excellent occasions, glittering occasions, social occasions. You can also wear it, as I said, just to do something like that on a sunny day, to go out on a short-sleeved, elegant t-shirt, a shirt like this, polo shirt like this, walking dogs, and you will look great and you will feel great. It's 100% cotton, as all our shirts are, and it's also, you can see there, it's embroidered on is the double-headed eagle of the Duran. We also have, by the way, polo shirts in lots of colors, and we have t-shirts too, short-sleeved and long-sleeved, and v-neck shirts, and we've got hats, hoodies, and stickers, and we've also got our ebooks, which we spoke about before. So you support the Duran by coming to our shop. You support yourself by owning these great ebooks and owning all these great items. And of course, if you buy our ebooks, you're also supporting the health workers. So and the rest, and the food places, the food outlets that also need help through these very difficult times. So come to the shop, support us and them. Alex will tell you how.
I'll put a link in the description box down below for the duranshop.com. Alexander Mercouris, thank you very much. Until next time, everybody, take care.